My name is Baba Prajna Shiva Kalidasa, and I am the Dragon Priest for the Tibetan Kapalika Aghora Path. We're going to be making a series of videos to explain some of what we do to people and to also clear up some misconceptions in the world about Kali, or Mahakali as we know her, the Great Mother Goddess. And uh, we'll also give you some things that you can do that will benefit you in many ways without you necessarily having to be a part of what we do. Essentially what we do is an extreme spiritual path in the sense that you really need to want to change if you're going to be a part of it, because you face all of your shadows in the process of this. So most people aren't what we would call basically a spiritual adventurer and stuff, and would like something a little bit more tame, and we understand that. We don't want everyone to be a part of what we do. We want everyone to be a part of what is best for them. And one of the ways that you can determine what is best for you is by determining what you believe. So if as we go through this you question your beliefs and stuff, here's a process for you. Get your journal, and on the first page put something that you believe. Turn over 2 or 3 pages, put another belief, and go through however long it takes, 2, 3 weeks, whatever, however long you need to do it before you've come up with what you consider to be everything that you believe at this time. And then go back and start with the first one and work your way through and research why you believe what you believe. So if your mother said it, or your father said it, or some priest or preacher or politician or whatever said it, some authority figure in your life said it, that's all well and good, but what is the basis for that belief? And is it a fact, or is it just a belief? So find out why you believe what you believe, and as you go along you'll find that you have less beliefs. Some of them are going to be minor, and some of them might be a little bit on the earth-shattering side. So, understand when you do this, you're entering a process of change. I mean, change is going to happen whether you like it or not. It's part of life. But when you do this, you're actively engaging that change. Then, after about 6 months beyond, when you finish this process, go back and do it again. And do it off and on for 2 or 3 years until you get to the point that you really have your core beliefs, and you know that the rest of it is not valid, and you let it go. As you go along the way over the years, these beliefs may change too, and that's okay. For example, when I first got into the worship of Mahakali, I had a teacher from Tibet. His name is Geshe Tamang. Geshe means teacher. He came here to the United States under political asylum, and as the spirits arranged it to be, he moved into the neighborhood, and my wife and I bought the house three doors down from him. And I was recovering from an injury from El Salvador, and he came down one day and informed me that I was going to be his new student. Now, having been trained as a Cherokee Ottawahosh, then what would be a spiritual leader, shaman, medicine man, whatever you want to call it, we call it an Ottawahosh, or Ottawahi for the plural. Then this was, not a great surprise. I needed a new teacher and knew it, and so there he was. And he told me about Mahakali. I wasn't really willing to accept Mahakali at that point, and he said, fine, test her. And so I did for a year. And she never failed me then, and she hasn't failed me since then. What that does for me is great. Is that the best thing for you? We don't know. So either you can test it, or you can stick with what you have. If you're happy there, it's all fine. Mahakali first came into being. There is an entity that we know as the original mind, the original mind, so far as we know, as far as our part of creation, created one thing, and that was the Great Mother Goddess. And so Mahakali is what we know as the Divine Feminine, and she birthed everything else into existence. The first thing she birthed into existence was her son, who's known as Shiva Bhairava Mahakala. And she did so for the sake of creating, a balance of energy, both masculine and feminine. And she had sex with her son. And from that union, which is known as Yabyum, which is what the gal that I'm wearing here is representing, then she and Mahakala birthed Ganesha, and Ganesha was the first shaman. Ganesha was basically a human form entity and stuff, and Mahakala, or Shiva as he's known purely in the Hindu end of things, went to take a little trip around the world. He had this great time with his mother, and off he went. And when he came back, there was this young man standing at the door. And so he was heading in the house, and he was dwelling there, and this young man told him he couldn't come in. He didn't know who he was. And so they had a fight, and he knocked Ganesha's head off. Goes in, has a nice reunion with Mahakali, and then she said, "Oh, by the way, you have a son. Did you see a young man outside?" And he's like, "Oops." And so he went out, and he couldn't find his head to put it back on and restore his life. And so he went looking for a head, and he found a young elephant that was ill. And the young elephant made a deal for his head to be able to be used in place of Ganesha's, and for what he would receive. And so he put the young elephant's head on Ganesha and brought his body back to life. And so, having gone and faced death and returned, he became the first shaman. So often we will refer to Ganesha as our big brother. Now, after that, they brought the Naga into being, and the first Naga that was born was Nagsesha, and there were twins actually. Nagsesha was first, and then Nagaliman was second. And Nagaliman is pretty much kind of like the boss entity over much of the shamanism in Indonesia. And the Naga are everywhere. They are the reason that we humans exist. As the other animals and stuff are created, eventually the Naga had sexual intercourse with the apes, and the Naga, the serpents, water serpents and dragons, this is where Kundalini comes from. So at the base of your spine, on the front of the sacrum, is a little gland that most religious cultures try to ignore the existence of. It's called the Kunda gland. And as that gets activated and stuff, then this Naga or Kundalini energy rises up the spine, and when it gets to the crown, it's like, for instance, in Egypt, you would see pictures that have a cobra on the front of the third eye. And that wasn't actually a crown that they wore. That simply represented that they had been through this process of Kundalini awakening. And then the process is to take that energy up and move it back down and get it to circulate, which takes you into a process called self-realization. Most people think that self-realization is the be-all and end-all of the spiritual life, and it is not. It is a second step. The Kundalini awakening is the first step, and the self-awareness and self-realization is the second step, and we've gone from there. And the various medicine societies and mystery schools of the world then represent that energy and help move you through that energy. They just generally don't talk to people about it who are not a part of their organization. Now, when the British went to India, they saw these depictions of Kali there, and a lot of them were pretty fierce, like her holding a a human skull full of blood and gore and drinking it and demons around and stuff. Well, this was a depiction of a battle that she fought. An army of demons were destroying much of the world, and the other deities that had been extrapolated out of Mahakali weren't exactly doing real well, and so they called for help. The Hindus tell the story a little bit different way, but they try and make Kali be less than she really is, and that's because of what happened with the Aryans 6,000 years ago, and we'll get to that another time. What happened in this case is every time a drop of blood from one of these demons hit the ground, it turned into a new demon. And so she would go and kill them, catch their blood in the Kapala, drink it. She has this poison substance in her throat that would kill the blood. And so she would take it in. And so the British, not understanding the iconography that they were seeing, and said that she was the goddess of the demons and she was the goddess of the vampires and all this sort of stuff. And in truth, she's everyone's goddess. But the difference between Mahakali and deities and religions and stuff is she doesn't care what you call her. You can call her Jesus, you can call her Buddha, you can call her, who flung the chunk. She doesn't care as long as you do it with respect. So, there are some Hindus today, where things went before is there was the tantric processes and stuff, and Tantra isn't all about sex. Tantra is, especially in the Tibetan way of things, a lineage, an ancient lineage. And so as you move through this ancient lineage, then you learn the things of that lineage, and eventually you do get to higher sexual practices and stuff, but that's years down the way. So, Tantra is not what it's been made to be in the United States and Europe. It's not licensed to do anything that you want to. What happened with that situation is the Hindus got started about 10,000 years ago. They were invaded by the Aryans 6,000 years ago, and that's where Vedic Hinduism came from, and that is a right-hand path religion. You will find Aghori in India who are a part of the right-hand path Hindu religion. And they do some things that are a little bit differently, and they have some people who engage into some rather aberrant behavior. But most of those people are people who are mentally ill, because the Aghori are the ones who primarily take in the ones who are mentally ill and who primarily work with the lepers and things of that nature. And some of these people then go off and do some really strange things, like roasting bodies on a funeral pyre and eating them, stuff like that, human bodies. This is not what we do in the Tibetan Kapalika Aghora Path. We do work with different human bones and things. I have a Kapala, it's a bowl made from a human skull that I drink and eat out of every day. But this is about overcoming the fear of death. It's not the same thing that these other religions see. So Mahakali is, our great mother, and she helps us, takes care of us. I've never lacked for anything that I really needed since I started working with her. And she does not expect me to give up myself for her, be possessed by her, or anything else. And she doesn't expect me to do just, things concerning her practice. She doesn't expect me to ignore my Cherokee heritage and the training that I got there. And she doesn't expect it of you either. So, as we go through these other videos and things that we will be making, we'll try and do about one a week, then we'll give you a chance to see exactly what is going on in many ways, to be able to experience some better things in your life, whether you ever join us or not. So that's going to be the end of this first one, and we'll see you again soon. Center button.